Oh man, what's really good, family tree? Let me know if you're up in the building with me. I'm testing out the system right now. Hopefully, we are live and direct, and you guys are tuned in with me right now. I have got an absolutely special show for you. Let me quickly shout out to the I was just checking myself. Let me shout out to the Gin and Tonic family. Unfortunately, they're having some technical difficulties, so we are unable to actually go live and do our presentation that we had lined up for them. So I thought to myself, let me actually, do something here on this channel for you guys who are always tuned in and ready to learn. So, let's just bring this up. No, it's fine. I don't need to bring up any more than that, actually. Yeah, so for those of you guys who are here right now, let's see. We have got Rika B. Oh, salute to you, Queen. And a Baal up in the building. What's good, King? And of course, Uncle Barber up in the building. Yeah, buddy. So family tree, let me know real quickly because I'm just testing something out. I just want to know if you can see me and hear me. This is the presentation that we have in store for you guys today. It is the historical Muhammad and the Ethiopian king. Okay, super special show that we have in store for you. For those of you guys who've been following up, we've been doing, let's just quickly bring it back to me. Yeah, we've been doing a couple of these shows. We've done them on Islamic Origins. We've done it on DCCI. We've done it, again, it's on Pifanda Films as well. So we've had these shows that we've done on the Abyssinian origins of Islam, the long format shows, an hour, 2 hours long on each subject. But today, today, I'm feeling very, very generous with you guys. So I'm going to do something where I've literally created this presentation, which is a short form presentation of all of those other shows and really condensed it into one show, just hitting you with all, the most pertinent and important information all there. Jeez, we've got Solomonic TV up in the building as well. And of course, I think I'm going to do an after show panel where we get you guys on. We can't get you guys on now, but an after show panel, another show. So I can just kind of catch up and kick it with you guys and see what's been going on because I ain't seen you guys for a long time. So if you guys are down for that, let me know. Let me know in the comment section. And of course, please hit up the like button. Like the algorithm needs to know that we're live right now on Titans TV and people actually, they want to see this information, baby. So yeah. So let's actually get it started right now. And let's go straight into the scene builder and let's go over here to the presentation itself, which is, there it is. The historical Muhammad and the Ethiopian king, rediscovering the Abyssinian origins of Islam. Wowzers. So as I said before, we've done usually it's two shows, right? Two shows. We break it up, talking about the Muhammad thesis and the Abyssinian king thesis. And over here, let's see if we can, let's see if we can just get it started. There we go. So over here, as you can see right now, we have the Abyssinian king thesis, right? So usually we break it up into this. So we have the king thesis and we've got the Muhammad of Abyssinia thesis. So it goes like this. The narrative of the legendary Abyssinian king that supported Muhammad was based on the historical Abyssinian king Abraha, who supported the historical Muhammad. The Umayyads suppressed and obscured the historical Abyssinian king's identity and narrative to further their own political agenda. Islamic theologians linked the report of King Caleb and his elephants with Quran chapter 105 to 106, inventing a story of Mecca and Quraysh primacy, whilst transferring ownership of elephants to Abraha, demonizing him and his South Arabian companions. Ibn Ishaq further solidified the obscurity and demonization by inventing the mythos that Muhammad was born in the year of the elephant, causing a chronological paradox. Guys, I know this is like really packed and dense with information. So if there's any questions that you have, like watch it and please drop them in the comment section down below because like it's a lot, to be honest with you. All right. And then, of course, we have the Abyssinian Muhammad thesis as well. So these are the two parts. And it goes like this. There was an actual historical Muhammad that the legendary Muhammad of the Islamic tradition narratives was based on. The apparent split between the historical and the traditional Muhammad was caused by the numerous vying political parties and propagandists inventing, fabricating, and suppressing stories and reports to further their own agendas. Okay? Now, a lot of this is going to sound wild to a lot of you, and some of you who know this stuff already be like, yeah, we kind of understand that. So let's just quickly show you guys, if you are a Muslim, things that I'm saying is not too crazy, because if you go into your own textbooks, there's something called hadith science, okay? Ilm al-hadith, okay? The science of hadith, okay? Or ilm al-rijal, okay? When you go into the science of hadith, like literally when you pick up your textbooks, within the first couple of pages, you will learn this information, okay? So it's nothing new. It's nothing new that I'm saying, to be honest with you. So right here, I've got up for you, which is you lot can literally go and purchase yourself the textbook of Hadith Studies by Muhammad Hashim Kamali. So this is an actual Muslim writing this. So everything that I'm telling you, you can literally find it within Islamic text as well. So it says here, the personal motives, sectarian bias, political, scholastic, and theological factors have been known from very early times to have prompted misguided individuals to fabricate hadith in order to advance their particular and partisan objectives. Okay, so remember when I said about there was, the political stuff, fabricating hadiths and so forth? Like literally, open up that textbook on the second page. Okay, it opens up straightforward. We're honest about this. We know about these fabrications within inside of the hadith literature, the hadith corpus itself. They further talk about there were political differences between Ali and Abu Bakr, between Ali and Abu Bakr, and Muawiyah and Ali, and Aisha between Ali and Aisha, between Abdullah ibn Zubair and Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, and generally between the Umayyads and Abbasids were among the causes of hadith forgery. Okay, so we can see that there were these vying political parties, right, and propagandists inventing, fabricating, and even suppressing stories and reports to further their own agendas, right? So it's not me saying this. I know it's going to sound crazy, yeah? You could literally find this within the Hadith science books to tell you this is what's going on. The only thing new that I'm bringing to the table is that I've actually found the historical Muhammad, yeah, where all of these narratives are technically based on and coming from, okay? That's the only thing new really that I'm actually bringing to the table. And I'm bringing it hopefully in a very organized and succinct manner that you guys can all follow. So over here, I usually start off by doing this and talking about, let's just bring it over to without seeing my face. And I usually ask the question, what is the commonality? What do Santa Claus and Muhammad actually have in common with one another? Okay, what is it that they have in common with one another? Now, apart from them both being legendary figures that flew on mythical beasts to the heavens, okay, what else do they have in common? And the answer to this is that they were, as I said, both legendary figures that were based on historical figures. Okay, Santa Claus was based on the 4th century Christian bishop from Byzantium, Turkey, called Saint Nicholas, whereas Muhammad of Islam was based on a 6th century Christian bishop from Abyssinia. Okay, and he too was also named Muhammad. All right, that's the commonalities. Now, this is really the important part here. Okay, the important part of all of this, because I'm going to break up this presentation into like 2 sections. We're going to go into the legendary. We're going to go into the historical. We've got the legendary on one side, which is the Muhammad of Islam and the Islamic narratives and traditions. We're going to talk about that one for a hot second. And then afterwards, we're going to go over to the historical. And then we're going to show how the information about the historical was gradually morphed and changed throughout successive generations. And then it metastasized. Like there was literally, we're all talking about this one individual, then it just breaks off and splits because, Santa Claus and St. Nicholas, they're not the same figures again. Like there's too much has happened for them to be the same figure, right? So the same thing as the Muhammad of the legends, it's completely split off from the historical figure itself, the core of where it originated from. So right now I'm going to talk about this. So I want you guys to get into your minds about the legend, the legendary, the myth, the who, the legend. It's who, it's the legend. Okay, the legend of Muhammad. So right here, this is a dictionary definition. Okay, and let's get me up on the screen again. Okay, legend is a traditional story, sometimes popularly regarded as historical, but not authenticated. Okay, that is what I want to get into your guys' heads, really and truly. Okay, is that all of this stuff that you're learning about Islam and Muhammad, none of it has been authenticated. None of it has been verified. None of it has been corroborated with inside of, the historical means and methods. None of it has. And if anybody tells you it has, I would tell they're a goddamn liar, okay? Because academia hasn't verified any of these things. So this is why we're going to place the Muhammad of Islam into legend. And I'm welcoming any of you guys who could say, yes, I can prove that the Muhammad of Islam, the narratives and the traditions of Islam existed. I'm all ears. I'm ready for that criticism because really and truly, none of it has been verified. And we're going to go into that right now. Okay. So I always start off with this because this is the really and truly the starting point. Okay. When did Muhammad exist? When did Muhammad exist? And all of you guys will parrot off to me, okay, that Muhammad was born in the year 570 and he died in the year 632, okay? Now, I'm going to show you guys that all of this is not based on history. So we're quoting from Gabriel Said Reynolds, from The Emergence of Islam. I love Gabriel Said Reynolds. If you're not following him, please go to his channel. He's on YouTube. Follow him. He's an academic. He teaches in Notre Dame. He's a big boy scholar, written loads of textbooks that if you go to university, you have to read from his books, right? So he writes here, Western scholars generally date the birth of Muhammad to 570 CE. Although this date is quite uncertain, it is based only on the assumption that Muhammad was 62 at his death in 632. Okay, so he's letting you know, right? None of this is verified. This is all uncertainty. It's all based on assumptions. Let's hold it as a model. They call it a tentative date of Muhammad. Okay, meaning for our model to progress in studying this stuff, we're going to say that he existed during this time frame, but yet we know as academics that we don't actually believe it because we can't prove it historically, okay? And then some people will say to me, no, what does that matter? And I'm saying to you, it matters a lot, okay? Because if you can't place this person within inside of history, within inside of reality, okay, within inside of a time frame, who are we talking about, okay? So we're going to go into that right now and show you what scholars actually know. And unfortunately, the public, the lay, they don't know this stuff. And, I see with inside of the comment sections when I do videos, they want to battle me on certain things. I'm like, clearly you don't read. Clearly you don't know this information yet. So hopefully, okay, I'm going to put you on this information. And with my stuff, I always source up my information, meaning I'm inviting you guys to go and read the stuff that I've read. Go in there, criticize me, do what you need to do, get it all out of your system, and then hopefully you'll come over to my side, okay? Join Death Row, baby. So anyways, Lamins over here says the time between, so over here, I'm quoting from Henry Lamins. I'm just showing you that the whole time frame of Muhammad is, how do I say it gently? It's not based, again, on history. It's just based upon numbers that were made up. Let's go into this. Okay, I'm quoting from the right-hand side right now. It says, in their distress, the traditionalists made use of the phrase in the Quran addressed by Muhammad to the Qurayshi in a Meccan surah. Earlier, I stayed among you for the space of 1 Umr. To back their calculations, they decided that the word earlier covered the time between the birth and vocation of Muhammad, and the term Umr correspond exactly to 40 years. They thus arrived at the total of 60 to 65 years. So to break this down a little bit simply, in order to create the Muhammad of the traditions, they went back into the Quran to tease out the Muhammad that's within inside of the Quran. The Muhammad within inside of the Quran says, "I've been with you for a certain period of time," okay, which is an unspecified amount of time. And they said that must be from his birth till the time he started preaching. And that time was 40 years. Okay. They've created a chronology for Muhammad. So 40 years. Then they go on to do something that's called arithmetical parallelism, okay, or arithmetic symmetry, where, Muhammad was alive for 40 years without, being a prophet, without being commissioned, without his inspiration. But then he spent 10 years in Mecca being commissioned, having inspiration. And then he spent another 10 years in Medina having, inspiration and being an apostle and leading the community, etc. Okay. This is called arithmetical parallelism. Okay, let's just read it out on the left-hand side. It says here, in the chronology of prophet, one can discover everywhere similar methods on the influence of symmetrical figures. For Muhammad's age, the number 60 was once accepted as a minimum, and it was broken down as follows: 40 years before the vocation, plus 10 years at Mecca and 10 years at Medina. If certain authors pronounce in favor of 13 years at Mecca, they bring in Azraphil and Gabriel to re-establish the symmetry between the 10 years in Mecca and those in Medina, or else they assign again the usual opinion 13 years to the period at Medina. Okay, so all of this is not based upon solid numbers, historical memory, anything like that. It's just that we need to make things symmetrical. We need to give the same amount of credence to Mecca as we do to Medina. That's what it's about. So we learn from this, okay? Let's quickly go on even to Lawrence Conrad, okay? And he picks up the same thing as well. And he makes mention of, when you go and you read his article, he goes through it all, and it shows you how, scholars, they don't hold on to the stuff that, the lay people do, right? They all know that the whole, Muhammad being 40 years when he received his revelation, it's all a topos. It's just a number that's been invented and created. And it was just simply meant to mean plenty. Like, I've been here for a long time, for a certain period of time. That was a long period of time. That's what it was meant to mean. But now it has become, this is when Muhammad supposedly existed. So anyways, let me just read over here. I'm going to read it in green again. The early Arabic literature traditions does not specifically date this event. It simply maintains first that Muhammad was born in the year of the elephant, and second, that he was summoned out as God's prophet at the age of 40. Considered together, the many reports to this effect, simply based on the prevailing view that the Mab'ath, which is the commissioning, is to be dated to approximately 610 CE, that both of the expedition of Abraham and the birth of Muhammad occurred in about 570 CE. Okay. However, this is contradicted by other evidence from outside the Islamic tradition, and even some reports within it suggesting that the Abyssinian incursion occurred at a significantly earlier date, and that Muhammad was born at some time other than the year of the elephant. And then he goes on to talk about the other individuals that have come to that same conclusion, such as Noldek and Lamins, etc., etc., etc. And then he goes on to talk about, also Goldziah, and certainly also acknowledge the fact that 40 is often used as a general metaphorical equivalent to many. So Muhammad, receiving his revelation at the age of 40 is nothing but a topos. It's nothing but symbolic numbers that's being used to say that he was of an advanced age. Okay, so in that being said, right, like when we have these discussions, right, and I said it, like, why are you looking for Muhammad within inside of the 7th century? Like, why is people starting at that point? And the reason why people are starting at that point is because they listen to the chronology and they try to do the mathematics. Okay, so Muslims themselves don't say. I'm just letting you know, like in terms of Islamic writings, of the past. None of them say that he was born in the year 570 AD. Okay, and he died in the year 632. None of them actually say that, to be honest with you. It's the Orientalists within the 1800s that kind of created this date of 570 and so forth. And we've all kind of rolled with it. And it's like, nobody's taking the time out to actually investigate all of these things. Right? Nobody has actually taken the time out. Everybody's got a YouTube channel, talking about the origins of Islam, talking about Islam apologetics, Islam polemics, and Muslims are doing their own stuff. And I'm like, yeah. Like, none of you guys have verified the story of Muhammad at all. All right. Salute to Rika B. Cheers. With that big super chat up in the building. Okay. So none of you guys have actually taken the time out to research this, authenticate the narratives within inside of Islam. You've just taken it as face value. Yes, Muhammad died at the age of 62 or 63 or 60, whatever day it is that they give you, right? Without actually investigating it. All right. Me, I investigate. Okay. I investigate. I take the time out because I don't care. Like my Christian brothers and sisters do. They believe they have the truth and they want to prove Muslims wrong. So in polemics, so they've already come with their bias and they're just trying to, disprove. And then Muslims, they already believe, so they're trying to defend and so forth. Like, I don't come from any of those predispositions. I'm open. If Muhammad existed and Muhammad is the last prophet and, all the other jargons that go with it, I'm willing to accept it. I don't have no problem. Like, cool. Let me hear your stuff. But I'm coming from, like, before Speaker School, I'm coming from academia. So, like, I've already got my academic mind. I'm already coming from, liberal arts, kind of way of thinking in terms of logic. Like, let us critically analyze the things that people are claiming. Okay, I'm not going to take you as face value. I'm going to be very skeptical. Okay, cool. Prove that to me. And then I go off, and because I know you guys can't prove it to me, I go off and say, let me go and do my own investigations. And I do my own investigations, and I see that really and truly, everybody is just, fumbling in the dark. Because none of you even know when this individual existed, but yet you want to claim he did or didn't exist. Crazy. But anyways, let me just quickly continue. Let me quickly continue. So again, continuing on the whole, when did Muhammad exist and so forth, right? So they will also tell you that Muhammad was born in the year of the elephant, okay? They will tell you that Muhammad was born in the year of the elephant. Interesting. Now, I'm going to get you guys involved in knowing that, you see, for example, Jay Smith talks about the standard Islamic narrative, okay? I don't like that terminology at all because I realize that there is not a standard that everything else should be judged on, okay? There is a dominant Islamic narrative, meaning those with the loudest voices. So right now, it's like people like the Salafis and the Sunni Muslims. That's the type of Islam that most of you guys know. Fortunately for me, I know better. I know that there is a whole range and diversity of Islams and Muslims out there that actually don't hold on to this one particular narrative. Okay, so there is a dominant narrative, but there's also a peripheral narratives in the plurals. Okay, and within inside of these peripheral narratives, they don't tell you that Muhammad was born in the year of the elephant. And I'm talking about, these are like the first. I'm talking about, we're going way back into the 8th, 9th century, 10th century, etc. Right? And when they're writing about Muhammad, they don't tell you that simply he was born in the year of the elephant. No, they say, he was born 10 years after the elephant. Some say 23 years after the elephant, 15 years before the elephant, 15 years after the elephant, a month after the day of the elephant, etc., etc., etc. There is people saying that Muhammad was born 40 to 50 to 70 years after the year of the elephant. And then there's others on the right-hand side that tell you that, Muhammad was born 15 or even 30 years before the year of the elephant or the expedition of the elephant, etc. Okay, or some people even say that he was then commissioned 10 years after the expedition. Okay, so with that, you have, if you really look at the Islamic literature, You have Muhammad was born 70 years after the year of the elephant. Blah! And then 30 years before the year of the elephant. These are the extremities. Okay? If you do the maths, quick maths, that's 100 years. 100 years you have to look for this individual called Muhammad. 100 years. 100 years. I don't know anybody who's actually done the maths and has done the research to look. Nobody's done it. Nobody's done it. But they're claiming that Muhammad did or didn't exist. I'm like, how? How? When none of you lot even know when he was supposed to exist. In fact, and something that's even real funny, like I love this actually. Something that's incredibly funny is this, because they talk about the year of the elephant, right? And I always think to myself, like, because I've read the literature, right? And we go through this. I've got time on my hands. Like somebody said, you must be obsessed with this. I'm like, no, I really like history. I really like history. Before I even started talking about Islam and stuff, like those of you guys who know, we do with like the conscious community in America, like we love history. Like that is our thing. That's what we're interested in, right? And we go to extremes where we literally learn languages, to read artifacts and so forth, right? So I literally took all the skills that I've learned, linguistical skills and historical skills and all of that stuff, right? And because we went to Speakers Corner so much, I'm even applying that now to like what people are talking about. I'm saying, let me do the research on it. And for me, it's like nobody else is doing it within inside of my community. Let me actually, show you guys like real academic research on this stuff. So anyways, let me just stop talking on that. So people talk about that Muhammad was supposedly born in the year of the elephant, right? And I always say to myself, like, okay, so which year of the elephant are you talking about? Which year of the elephant are you talking about? Because there isn't just one possible place where the year of the elephant is. Why do I say that? Because they talk about different expeditions. So, for example, in Muqatil Ibn Sulaiman, he talks about at least 2 different expeditions. Okay, one was done by Abu Yaqsum. The other one was supposedly done by the Najashi, and then some people said there was another done by Abraha. But let's just read through it quickly, right? It says here, Muqatil, writing in 150 after the Hijri, okay, or died 150 years after the Hijri. This is roughly in the 760 something. I can't remember the dates exactly when he was writing. But it says here, okay, reports about the following 2 expeditions of Abraha al-Ashram al-Yamani against Mecca. The first one was headed by Abu Yaqsum ibn Abraha in order to destroy the Kaaba and establish the elephant as an object of worship. This expedition failed. The second one occurred after some Qurayshites came to a Christian church called blah, blah, blah. When the Najashi was informed about the burning of the church, he became enraged and decided to go out against Mecca. Hujr ibn Shuharil al-Kindi, Abu Yaqsum al-Kindi, and Abraha ibn al-Sabah promised him their help. It was the Najashi who headed the expedition and who talked with Abdul Muttalib and returned him his seized herd. Okay, so if you know anything about the story, they will tell you, oh, it was Abraha who spoke to Abdul Muttalib. But then there's also another record saying, no, it was the Najashi who spoke to this individual. And there's another record saying it was Abu Yaqsum who headed the first thing. So it's like, okay, cool. So out of all of these 3, out of all of these events, which one is the year of the elephant? Please let me know. Please let me know. And this is where people, like, they don't have a clue. Like, you lot claim things. As I said, I'm just going to show you stuff. Like, this stuff is legendary, okay? This stuff is packed with information. Like, Muhammad is written about and talked about so much, right? But none of it has been verified. None of it has been authenticated. None of it has been corroborated. You're just accepting it as though it is gospel. But I ask you, which one is it? Let me know, my Muslim brothers and sisters, which one of these is it? Okay? And I'll even tell you, all of this stuff is rubbish anyway, because there is no records. Like, historians already know that the whole, the marching of an elephant throughout Arabia is all ahistorical. That never happened. That never happened at all. Okay? Never happened. Yes, there was an Abraha. Yes, there was an Najashi. Yes, they had expeditions in Arabia. But they never brought no elephant to Arabia. Well, guess what? Guess what? This is why Kalam is the best. Because Kalam does history. What everybody else ain't talking about, I will talk about. So did you know there was actually a year of the elephant? Okay. So we got Abraha, marching throughout Mecca. I'll say Mecca, but marched throughout Arabia. Okay. All the way up to Yathrib, which is Medina. Okay. He marched all the way up to them sides there. And you know what he did? He conquered them, etc., etc., etc. That happened in the year 548, and he had other expeditions as well. Okay. So Muhammad was supposedly born in the year 570. Fortunately for you guys, look, even they will tell you that there is outside Islamic traditions and even some reports within it suggesting that the Abyssinian incursion occurred a significantly earlier date. Okay, so we see that these Abyssinian incursions, yes, it happened in 548. So my question is, was Muhammad born in the year 548 rather than 570? That's a big time difference, you know. And I'll even tell you what it is. The year of the elephant, right, in actual history, did occur. But it's got nothing to do with any marching of elephants, right? It has something to do with, in the year 531, as recorded by John of Molasses, yeah, talking about the Najashi, talking about the great king of Ethiopia, Kalam, also called Elis Sabas, okay? You know what he did? After he had defeated the Himyarite Yusuf. Actually, let me read it. Let me just read it. Let me read it to you, okay? So this is John of Molasses in his chronicle on page 268. Go on to page 269 if you have it as well, and you'll find some more information. It says here, when the Roman emperor heard from the patrician Rufinus about the transgression of Emperor Coades, he composed and dispatched sacred commands to the emperor of the Axumites. When this Indian emperor had joined battle with the emperor of the Homerite Indians, he defeated him completely, capturing his empire and his whole territory. In his place, he made Anganus from his own family emperor of the Homerite Indians, so that the empire of the Amorite Indians should also be subject to him. Okay, I'm going to skip a little bit, because there is some information, but like there's an ambassador that's a Roman ambassador that comes to see him, and he does a whole ceremonial pomp for everybody to see. And then obviously the ambassador is written back and spread this news far and wide. Okay, and let's just get to the good bits. It says here, okay, in the ambassador's account of the occasion when he was received by the Indian emperor, he described the form of the Indian imperial ceremonial. The emperor was naked, wearing from his belt to his loins gold-threaded linen clothing, and over his shoulder and stomach a tunic decorated with pearls and bracelets in groups of 5, and gold bangles on his arms. Around his head was wound a gold-threaded linen turban with 4 cords on either side and a gold collar around his neck. He stood. This is a beautiful sight. Beautiful sight. Imagine all that gold and linen from Africa. Okay, cool. He stood on top of 4 elephants, which had a yoke and 4 discs upon them. Something like a tall carriage covered with gold leaf. Just as the chariots of the provincial governors are covered in silver, the emperor of the Indians stood on high, holding a small something. Okay, so we can see there, yeah, in the year 531, where there is mention of an actual elephant, where there is a mention of expeditions that actually did take place, and the conquering of the Arabian Peninsula did take place under the King Kalam, the Najashi, right? These things did take place, and there was an elephant, but this was in Africa, mind you. This was in Aksum, where this whole pomp of the elephants took place. This, okay, potentially could have birthed into the minds. I'm not saying it is or isn't, but it just seems most likely than anything else. This would have birthed into the minds of the Arabs of a year of the elephant. Okay, the year when the Ethiopians actually took over the Himyarite kingdom and the whole of Arabia, and there was pomp on and glory and ceremony with elephants. And this would have given rise to what the Arabs would have called the year of the elephant. And this happened in the year 531 AD. So now, again, I'm always asking, like, why are we looking for Muhammad in the 7th century? Why? When if he was born in the year of the elephant or before the year of the elephant, this all took place in the 6th century. This is what we can actually verify. See how we do history? See how we do history? We don't take the word of people saying stuff and writing stuff. We find information. We go back into the annals of history, go into the literature, we go into contemporary works, right? We go and read it, and we find the records of a year of an elephant that's associated with the Abyssinians or the Ethiopians or the Axumites. That actually did happen. Okay, that's how you do history. But unfortunately, it's not in the time frame of when Muhammad of Islam should have existed. Okay, according to this, to the dominant Islamic narrative. Now, like, again, it's not just me saying that there's a clear problem with the chronology within inside of Islam. It's not just me. Okay, it's not just me. We have people like Gorky, Motsky, and Shuela. They all write about this, and they talk about, let's see. Okay, the interest in chronology apparently only started in the generation of Al-Zurri and became major interest only in the generation of Ibn Ishaq and Musa ibn Uqba. As apparently there was no generally accepted chronology prior to the generation of Ibn Ishaq and Musa ibn Uqba, and probably no consensus apart from the very few dates. The attempts of creating a consistent chronology display a lot of contradictions. That's apart from a few key dates. In terms of creating consistent chronology, display a lot of contradictions. This is not only apparent when comparing different chronologies, as those of Ibn Ishaq, Musa ibn Uqba, and al-Waqidi, but also within the single works. Okay, and gives an example here. Ibn Hisham, for example, mentions that Khalid ibn al-Walid converted to Islam shortly before the conquest of Mecca, but he actually places the story before the expedition to Al-Hudaybiyah 2 years earlier. Thus, we cannot simply rely on the chronology of any of the Syria authorities. Relying on the presentation of the material in the Hadith collection is even more problematic. So they're talking about Syria now, that the chronology is obviously, there's problems there within the chronology of the Syria, but now they're talking about within inside of the Hadith literature, which is two different corpus of literature. And they're saying here, as has been shown by Muhammad Kazim Zaman, that the Hadith collectors did not necessarily attempt to provide a consistent narrative of events in their collections. They collected traditions that were in some way connected to an event. As long as they had reliable isnads, they may have attempted to provide some chronological order, but this was not their main interest, thus drawing any far-reaching conclusions from the place where a tradition is found in a Hadith collection seems unwarranted. And they were doing like a little rebuttal to Stephen Shoemaker. But as you can see, yeah, there is major problems with inside of the chronology of Islam, with inside of the Islamic traditions, okay? It's not just me saying this, okay? Some of you might think, oh, Kalam. No, it's just because you guys ain't reading the academic papers, but they all know this information, okay? So I'm going to do a quick break there and like read some comments and see what you guys are actually saying. But I'm just going to, but hopefully I've kind of seared into your minds. Hopefully I've kind of seared into your minds, right, that the whole story of Muhammad is completely legendary, right? Because I'm even starting, I can go in through the hadiths, I can go in from point to point about the events and things that took place in Muhammad's life, and I will show you that none of it has been verified. But instead of just doing all of that and doing the minuscule, let's start at the macro level of when we're doing with history, we're dealing with time frames. Chronology. And we can see that the chronology of Muhammad has not been verified. It's completely legendary. All of it is legendary. It's based upon what? Symbolic numbers. Symbolic numbers that has to be symmetrically matched. Can you imagine? Can you actually imagine? Symbolic numbers, yeah? They tell you about the year of the elephant, but which year of the elephant? Huh? Oh my God. Cool. So let me just stop there real quickly, and then let's get into some of your comments, and then we can return. Okay, family, let me know if you're enjoying the shows thus far. And if you are enjoying the show, please hit up the likes, okay? And support the channel and drop some super chats like Rika. All right, cool. Let me read some of these comments right now. It's mad. This is by Mark Smith, sorry. It's mad. Ethiopians know all their kings' names throughout history, but the Arabs don't know the name of the king who protected them. Keep up the good work, bro. Exactly. Can you imagine? They spent at least 15 years to 18 years, 20 years, let's just say around 20 years being protected and sheltered by this legendary king. But we don't know the name of this legendary king. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Crazy that. Okay. Always king did this and Pharaoh did that, but no names. I know. See how they do us Africans? Anyways. All about dominating the trade routes in that region, still going on today. Where are all the riches of Africa, Europe, and Asia pour in? And Medu Seneb Secha Pesh is up in the building, hitting us up with the fire. Okay, cool. So I just wanted to get that out of the way to show you that, the whole story about Muhammad is completely legendary. Completely legendary because it can't be verified. It can't be authenticated. Okay. But I actually want to do a quick presentation on the actual historical Muhammad. Yep. Real quickly to let you know. Yeah. We can't find that Muhammad, but we can find a actual Muhammad within inside of history. It says here, historical, this is the definition. Historical, people existed in the past and are considered to be a part of history. So we're going to show you this, okay? That the Muhammad I'm going to present is a person that actually is considered to be part of history. All right? So, luckily for us, the Arab traditionists actually make mention of this individual called Muhammad, thankfully. And they unwillingly do this, so to speak. And I'll explain this in a minute. So, you know how, they wanted to, their Muhammad was supposed to be special. He was named Muhammad because he was going to be a prophet, etc., 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 etc. But there was already stories going around about other prominent Muhammads. Okay, so they had to write a chapter about these other Muhammads. Okay, so it says here, accounts of those who were named Muhammad in the days of Jahiliyyah, days of ignorance. Okay, in the hope of being commissioned to prophethood, which had been predicted. So this is what people call criterion of embarrassment and so forth. Like they wanted him to be the first, but no, they had to admit that there was others. And funnily enough, right, they actually talk about two different Muhammads in here and give them a biography. In total, they name 5, but just names. 2 of them, they give a little bit more detail. And these 2 individuals, guess what they were? Guess what religion they were? Guess what religion they were? Christian. They were Christian. And guess what their profession was? They were bishops. Imagine that. This, to me, is very enlightening. Very enlightening for people who, want to understand the meaning of Muhammad and why Muhammad and so forth, right? You have to understand, and this is why I always say, like, my Christians out there, like, you should fight for Muhammad, It's going to sound weird and wild to you guys here, but you should fight for him because Muhammad was actually a Christian name that was only given to people who were ranking very high within the Christian ecclesiastical framework. Okay, this is the Arab traditionalists that they're telling you this, right? So we have Muhammad that's been mentioned, but the Muhammad that draws our attention is that someone that we can actually find within inside of history. Okay, and this is in Ibn Sa'ad's Tabakat, and it says here Muhammad Ibn Khuzai. I should really let you guys know that when it says Ibn Khuzai, Ibn Huzayba, and all these other things here, technically speaking, these aren't names of individuals. It's literally just saying, when we says Khuzai, it's just saying that it's a person from Khuza. So it doesn't even say who this. This is where it gets all crazy, yeah. And they really try to hide things, right? And Khuza is literally the South Arabians. It's a group of tribe or a collection of individuals that actually migrated out from South Arabia, etc. Right? But it's very interesting because there is Michael Lecker. He's written a whole book on the Banu Sulaim, where these individuals are supposed to be from, and very interesting stuff to actually go in there and kind of learn from. I'm not even going to go into too much detail on that because I don't want to be sidetracked, but it's very interesting. Professor Michael Lecker, read his work and you'll find out more about this particular Muhammad. So anyways, this Muhammad, he was named so in the hope of being a prophet. And guess what he did? He went to Abraha in the Yemen and remained there with his creed till he died. Okay? And it says here about his brother, Qais. Okay? And then if you go into Ibn Ishaq's work, it talks about Muhammad and Abraha and Qais and a festival and feast and Muhammad being crowned and made an emir of Mudar and, telling him to go amongst the people to invite them to pilgrimage at his cathedral, which he had built. Okay? Very interesting stuff. And why I find it very interesting, right? 1 second. What I find very, 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 very interesting. Why is my YouTube not coming up? There we go. What I find very interesting, is that the names, this just drew my attention because in reading history, I know that these individuals, we can verify. We can find these individuals. Why? Because one, Abraha was a king. So again, we know that he was a king during a particular time frame. Okay. And we know that these other individuals Qais was also somewhat of a king amongst the Hujrids, amongst the Arabs as well. So we know these people existed. So I'm like, I like this. Let me actually go in and learn some more about this individual and these figures. So again, as I said, we have Abraha, who was the emperor of Abyssinia. Okay. And in his inscriptions, he has his cross letting you know he's a Christian. And he lets you know he's the king of Sa'ba, of Dhuraidan, of Hadramat, and of Yamanat, and of the Arabs in the upper country and on the coast, i.e. Tihama, has written this inscription when he returned from the country of Ma'ad, otherwise known as Mudar, when he sees the Arabs of Ma'ad taken at Mudhir hands, chased out Amir, son of Mudhiran, and sees all the Arabs of Ma'ad, Hagar and Khat, Tay, Yathrib, i.e. Medina, and Guzam. Okay, and you can see all there. The map is all there for you guys to see. Ooh, let me just put my face up here as well. So on the map, yeah, you guys can see all this in all the area that he had conquered, all the names, right? All of the areas, all the way into Iraq, my man conquered, right? All right, let me see. Do I have the time frame of him? So he would have ruled. I've created this timeline. So he ruled Abraha roughly from around 535 till about 565. I think one of the last inscriptions we had of him was around 560 or so, and he was said to have ruled for about 30 years. So that's kind of the time frame that we're working with right now. Yeah, so it's beautiful. Like we're now jumping into history, where we can actually verify, corroborate these individuals. Now, Abraha has loads of inscriptions. He is well attested. He's written about with inside of Greek works, Syriac works, Ethiopian works, Arabic works. The list goes on. Like, we know about this individual. We know he's a historical figure. Okay? We know that. And it's saying that this particular Muhammad went to Abraha in the Yemen and remained there with his creed. He had a religion. Wow. With Abraha. Wow, this is very interesting. He also had a brother called Kays, okay? And then we know, once we read the works of Procopius, right, Muhammad's brother is also mentioned there. It says here, as for the Homerites, it was desired that they should establish Cases, the fugitive, as a captain over the Ma'ads. Wow. So this person, Procopius is writing in 550 AD. So this is, he's talking about the histories of the wars, and he's writing about Muhammad's brother. Wow. Imagine that. Imagine that. Why can't we find the same thing for the Muhammad of Islam? I just want to know. Like, imagine that. Muhammad of Islam, we know that he went to an Ethiopian king, but we don't have the Ethiopian king's name. But we do have the historical Muhammad's king's name. We know Muhammad had, siblings or how can I put it, kins, members of his family, but none of them is recorded within inside of history. None of them at all, right? But we can find Muhammad's brother mentioned here, like the historical Muhammad's brother mentioned. Wow. We even have his other brother mentioned within inside of inscriptions. We even have his grandfather mentioned within inside of inscriptions, within inside of Roman writings, etc. Like, imagine that. Imagine that. We can find it for the historical Muhammad that lived in the 6th century, but we can't find it for the legendary Muhammad of the 7th century. Interesting. I find that interesting. Anyways, we have Sidney Smith talking about Muhammad and Brother Kays. It says here, at one point, the narrative of Ibn Asad can be connected with other sources. He states that when Abraha was imposing Christianity on the northern Arabs, he appointed Muhammad ibn Khuzar as emir of Mudar, and as incidentally that Kays, who went with his brother to the territory of Kinana, fled to Abraha. And according to Procopius, this case, a prince of Ma'ad had to flee Sumayyafa. Justinian requested that the king to restore Kays at the same time that he asked for an invasion of Persian territory. He would renew that request to Abraha, the father of Nunus, twice went to Kays before he became a fugitive in Himyar. That is before 530. Nunus himself went to Kays when he ruled some northern region. He must then have been restored. Later, Kays sent his son Muawiyah. So we even know Kays' son's name. Imagine that. His two sons' name. Later, Kays sent his son Muawiyah to Justinian, then gave his emirate to his brothers and followed his son. Justinian made him Phylok of Palestine. The Arab sources show that throughout Kays was friendly relations with Abraha. And it says here, Amr was preferred to withdraw to Mandir's army from the north. Once Ma'ad was subject to Abraha, it is probable that he would install the former Emir Kays ibn Khuzar on whom he could rely. It is equally probable that he appointed Muhammad ibn Khuzai to impose Christianity in the Mecca region, since Kays could support him from his adjoining territory. The evidence interlocks, though, from quite unconnected sources. Imagine that. Okay? And this is what I love, This is what I love. This is what I love. I love the fact that what a lot of Muslims are trying to do and what a lot of Christians are trying to disprove, Kalam could just come on the scene, who actually reads history and can show you, yeah, there was a person called Muhammad that existed in the 6th century that actually started a new religion and caused a whole religious revolution and conquered the whole of Arabia with his Abyssinian king. Like, that is all historical. That is all historical. Nobody's doubting it. But nobody's telling that story, unfortunately. Yeah? Muslims ain't going to tell you that story. Christian apologetics ain't going to tell you that story. Academia is written in the books, but they're not being loud and proud about it. And that's why I always say, black history is important. African history is even more so important. And people need to know this information. Yeah. Anyways, let me just continue. All right. So we can see that, Muhammad brought his new creed, or had a creed, and he was with Abraha, and he was there with him until he died, with this new religion. But the question is, do we see any evidence of this? Do we see any evidence of it? Right? Just the same way I always think to myself, if Muhammad of the Islamic traditions, right? So let me just separate the legendary Muhammad, had this Abyssinian king and he took over the whole of the Arabian Peninsula. surely we should see the impact and the after effects of all these things. And you know what archaeologists is doing? They're coming up short. They can't find anything at all what this legendary Muhammad did. They're all coming up short. But guess what? Kalam can go into the 6th century, okay, where his historical Muhammad actually existed and can show you his actual impact. Cool. So let's go into this. It says here, we're now talking about the inscriptions of Abraha. So this is Abraha now, who was with Muhammad and followed his creed, or they followed each other's creed, however you want to interpret that. It says here, dating from about 20 years later, show notable differences. Abraha systematically names the second person of the Trinity his Messiah. That is the Messiah of the Rahman. This second person is no longer called Son of Christos, Victor. More generally, the inscriptions of Abraha replace the Aksumite loanwords by others taken from the Syriac. The term Messiah, church, and priest, these changes probably indicate a new Christology and a change in ecclesiastical organization. So, just to make that make more sense to you guys, right? In terms of, let me actually go back. In terms of Arabia, okay, the Aksumites, i.e. the Ethiopians on mainland Africa, had control of Arabia and had puppet kings in place from roughly around from around 500 AD, okay? They put in place Mathahid, Ilan, Yanuf. Then they also put in Madi Karib, Yafor, but then Yusuf, he was a Jew that got certain Christians on his side and, massacred the Abyssinians and the Ethiopians. And then Sumyefa was in place. Okay. Anyways, up until Abraha's time, right, they all follow the same script in terms of the formulaic writings and inscriptions and how they mention certain things. But during the time of Abraha, okay, from 548 onwards, okay, we can see a completely different change that took place, right? Completely different change. The religion of Himyar and Arabia completely changed. Okay, completely changed. And we know the reason why it changed, because this particular Muhammad changed it all. His religious head, his bishop, changed it all. That's what happened. Okay, let's quickly go on a little bit more. All right, and I find this very interesting as well. Like, just to drop this there for you. Okay, so we have an inscription, again, a South Arabian inscription. This inscription is written roughly 523 AD, and it is the inscription JA1028. Okay, go look it up, and you will find the first time you will see the name MHMD is being written about or talked about, written on inscription of Muhammad or Mahmed or Mahmud or anyways, MHMD, right? That is there. Okay. And this is the first time in the 6th century that we actually come in contact with an MHMD. Funnily enough, this inscription, okay, is not the name for Muhammad, the prophet of such. It's actually the name of the God, okay? God, within inside of the Christian literature, was called MHMD, the praised one, okay? So it says, the inscription it has there, the Lord of the Jews, okay, and Mahmed, or Lord of the Jews with the praise one, the Lord of the Jews, Lord of the Jews with the praise one. Then it also has Lord of the Jews with Rahmanan. So it shows you that Rahmanan and Mahmed was used interchangeably, and they meant the same thing, meaning it was the name for the Christian deity. Rahmanan was the name for the Christian deity. Mahmed was the name of the Christian deity. Okay, cool. But we also know that, I'm just going to quickly go over to Manfred Kropp and Carlos Segovia. And also, Christian Robbins also, lets us know that basically during that time frame, other people were named or nicknamed after their deity. So, for example, there was a person called Musaylima within inside of the Islamic records, and he was also called Al-Rahman, and he was called Al-Rahman after his Lord's name. Okay. Then there's other places you should tell you that. Is there another place? I thought I had somewhere else as well. Yeah, okay, cool. It says here, we know that some reformers were nicknamed after the deity that they claimed to worship. This could also have been the case with Muhammad, okay? So, up-to-date scholarship is letting you know that within inside of the South Arabian sphere of the world, from roughly around 520 onwards, there were Christians that were calling God Muhammad, okay? And this is possibly where the name Muhammad actually comes from. We also do actually have Christians in Najran, actually, a lady actually called Muhammada, which lets you know that there is the theonym Muhammad, but then there's a theophoric name that humans bear in the name of their deity. And Muhammad could simply be that. Muhammad could simply be a Christian, the name for the Christian deity that's now being held as a human. So I'm a Christian, hold the name. For example, Jesus Christ, then you can have somebody who is a male called Christian, right? So just the name of the God, but a human being has got it to mean I'm Christ-like and so forth, right? So that's what was going on there. We can see the evidence of it because other people are nicknamed after the deity as well. So I just wanted to bring that up because that was very interesting to see that all of this stuff in terms of Muhammad, the name, it's not actually a Northern Arabic name. It's only found in South Arabia. And this is why you have to ask the question, like, why this Meccan individual has the name Muhammad when it's a South Arabian name? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, why does this English person have the name MacDonald? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Clearly, that's a Scottish name. So therefore, is it because their heritage comes from Scotland or they have some type of Scottish influence? Anyways, let me just quickly continue really quickly. All right. So we're going to see here that there is Abraha's linguistical and cultural influence within inside of the Quran. I think this is what this slide says, cultural policy. But yeah, you also find it within inside of the Quran. So Carlos A. Segovia, within inside of his Quranic Jesus, clearly sees that, again, what's it called? Abraha changes his formulas. Instead of writing the second person of the Trinity or the third person of the Trinity, which is the Holy Spirit, from the normal way of writing it is Manifest Kudesh. And we see that he changes it into the Syriac form, which is Ruhu Kudes. Okay, we see that there. We see there's other little things that's like changes. So it says which denotes a Syriac rather than Ethiopian influence in the latest case, and hence bears witness to a shift in Abraha's linguistical and cultural policy. Lastly, the wording relative to Jesus and Jesus' relation to God is also different as well. So, you'll find that Rahman and his son, but within inside of Abraha's inscriptions, you'll find that it's Rahman and his Messiah. So changes away from Jesus, son of Christ, Jesus Christ being the son, to now just being the Messiah. So, Carlos Segovia and others have noted, we also see the same shift within inside of the Quran. It says here, the Ruh Qudus, from which the Quranic Ruh Qudus derives also. So we can see that these shifts and changes that took place during Abraha's time is also found within inside of the Quran. We also see that, again, on the second slide here on the right, it says here that whatever the case, Abraham's innovative Christological formula evinces that South Arabian Christians in the 6th century were not unfamiliar with the representation of Jesus as God's Messiah instead of Son, a feature that curiously we find again in the Quran. So I'm just showing you these things, right? So all of these things where we see that Ruh Qudus is found in the Quran, which came from Abraham. We find, or inscriptions, like he brought that within inside of the Arabian Peninsula. We find that instead of Jesus being called the Son, he is called the Messiah, and we find that also in the side of the Quran. So we can see all of these influences that Abraham, and his religious head, who must have given this to him, and he into his inscriptions, which we know as being Muhammad, is now found in the Quran. Very, very interesting. And this is why I'm thinking to myself, like, why is everybody looking for a 7th century Muhammad when all the evidence points to a 6th century Muhammad? The Quran points to a 6th century Quran. It points to it coming from the 6th century. All of the stories derive from 6th century Christian literature, where Abraham, Let me not even go there. Let me just quickly finish this quickly. All right. So, something else that's just going to be interesting to you guys as well, to let you guys know about the historical Muhammad and the pre-Islamic Basmala. Okay. We've inside of there, like when you read the Quran, the first lines of the Quran you're ever going to read is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. No, anyways, I'm just stop playing around. Okay, cool. So we find that the very first lines is the Bismillah, which is, in name of God, the most merciful, the most gracious, right? But funnily enough, what do scholars find? Okay, Ahmed Jalad, he's written let me put some respect on his name. Professor Ahmed Jalad has written a book called The Pre-Islamic Basmala, or papers called The Pre-Islamic Basmala. And he shows also that this, came from the 6th century also underneath Abraha and his religious authorities. Okay? I'll just quickly read here. It says here, what is clear, however, is that Rahman was not used in pre-Islamic times in North Arabia. So imagine this, yet again, as I said, look at that. Muhammad comes from South Arabia. The name Muhammad comes from South Arabia. It actually comes from a South Arabian name for the deity, right? Rahman, that you find in the Quran, doesn't come from North Arabia, right? It comes from South Arabia. So it doesn't come from Mecca. It doesn't come from Medina. It doesn't come from Damascus. It doesn't come from all of those different places. No, it comes from South Arabia. The question that you should be asking yourself, and you should be asking the Muslims around it, like, why? Why does your prophet have a South Arabian name if he's not South Arabian? Why does your prophet introduce a South Arabian deity called Rahman to North Arabians if he is a North Arabian person and he's speaking to Northern Arabs? Why? If he's speaking in Mecca and Medina, like where there's no mention of Rahman anywhere in any of the descriptions or anything there, none of them know them names. Even in the Quran, they don't even know who Rahman is, right? Why is he introducing that if he's not South Arabian? See, these are the joys here. I can't wait. To have these very, very good conversations, right? To people who are well studied. I need to actually speak to some academics on these type of topics. Anyways, let me continue. Kropp suggests that the elements Al-Rahman was originally understood as a divine name in the Basmala in apposition with Allah. In this light, okay, I would go on to suggest that the Basmala had a theological and political dimension. The invocation seeks to provide a syncretize the two main monotheistic poles of Arabia by equating North Arabian Allah with South Arabian Rahman. The regional and perhaps confessional difference between the two is echoed in the Quran. Everybody's telling you, the stuff that happened in the 6th century is actually echoed in the Quran. But none of them are actually brave enough to say this actually comes. Never mind. No. I won't be brave as well. Anyways, it says here, the interaction between North and South Arabian was no doubt intensified by the Himyarite expansion into Arabia Deserta and would have reached a climax following Abraha's excursion as far north as Tabuk in the 6th century. These would have brought both regions under a single political umbrella and would have led to new dynamics between different regional confessional groups. It is possible that the bipartite Basmala traces its origins back to this period and originally functioned as an expression of confessional unity among North and South Arabian monotheists, declaring in the name of Allah, who is the Rahman. This synchronization is perhaps foreshadowed in our reading of CIH 543 above. Okay, so we can see that this particular Basmala, this particular inscription that they found in the late 6th century was introduced under the rulership and kingship of Abraha when he united both North and South Arabians, and it goes into depth. Like, I really, please go and read this particular article. It's very, 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 very good. And it lets you know that the Abyssinians were on smoke. Cool. I think I'm going to just finish up here. I'm going to finish up here because there's a lot more, but I don't even want to go into a lot more. I'm going to finish up here, leave the timeline up, and then take any questions before I have to go. Okay. Jeez, man, like medicine. Hey, loving it. Okay, cool. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never went to Abyssinia. That's another lie. The king's name was Najashi. May Allah be pleased with him. He reverted to Islam as well at the hand of Jafar ibn Abi Talib. Okay, cool. Spirit of the faith. Okay, I love the fact that I can read and I can see that you've been indoctrinated with Islamic propaganda. Okay, and yeah, you've been indoctrinated with Islamic propaganda. And with this, I think I made it clear. I'm not talking about the Islam. Sorry, I'm not talking about Muhammad of the Islamic traditions. This is all to do about the Abyssinian Muhammad. Okay, this is predates your legendary Muhammad, and this is talking about the 6th century Muhammad that was in Abyssinia and so forth. Okay, now we know that your legendary Muhammad. Okay, I don't even want to go there because it's long to actually show you this, but I don't want to go there. So let's leave that as that. What's the historical proof that the Arabs were unified before Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? Look at any map before his appearance, bro. Let's look at the map before. So as you can see here, yeah, Abraha, okay, Abraha conquered and was the king of not only Saba in the south, Zuredan, i.e. Himyar, again in the south, Hadramat in the southeast, and of the Yemenat, okay. He was also the king of the Arabs in the upper country, and on the coast, i.e. Tihamat, where your Mecca would be, etc. And he subdued the country of Ma'ad, which is in the Najd region in central Arabia. And he sees all the Arabs of Hajar and Khat, which is in Iraq, Tay, which is in northern Arabia, Yathrib, which is in, northwestern Arabia. So we can see here, under his rulership, he had rule of the whole of the Arabian Peninsula. I don't know. Talk to me. Do you deny history? Do you deny inscriptions? Do you deny what's in front of your face? Or you let me know. It's not me making this stuff up. It's all sourced. If you want to go back, please go read Christian Robin, Himyar, Aksum, and the Arabia Deserta in late antiquity. You can find this on page 169 and page 170. Please go there. Okay. Let's see. Abraha did not live that long. I'm not mistaken. He died the same year Prophet Muhammad was born. As I said, unfortunately for you, you've been indoctrinated with Islamic propaganda, and you haven't taken the time out to go back and actually verify this information. Okay, like on this channel, we deal with critical thinking. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to spread critical thinking, thought-provoking media. That's the tagline of Titans TV. Thought-provoking media. I want to provoke you guys to think and to think critically. Go and pick up a book and read, and don't read propaganda. Go and read actual unbiased works written by scholars, academics. Go and read up on the archaeology. Go read up on the inscriptions. Go read up on the numismatics. Go read up on the literature of the time, contemporary, near contemporary. Go read up on the records. Like, it's all there for you. Nothing is hidden in 2025. It's all there for you. We're in the age of the information. No, we've gone past the age of information even. We're in a digital age. We're in the age of imagination, where all you have to do is think a thought, write it, prompt it with inside of ChatGPT, as I see a lot of people are doing these days, and you can find some of the answers. I'm not telling you to do that though. I don't do that. Actually go pick up a book and read, because ChatGPT is not 100. Anyways, is there a link with Exi? I don't know. I don't know who Exi Abi here is. I don't know who that is. Sorry. Peace, success, and longevity to all born eternal Lord of Law. What's good, my brother? Long time. Okay, cool. So I am finishing up. If you guys have got any questions, let me know. If you guys would like to jump on a, I don't know, StreamYard like afterwards, also let me know. Otherwise, I'm happy to like finish up and head off home because I'm ready to go home. To be honest with you, it's late. And it's a shame that we didn't get to, do this on Gin and Tonic Show because we were scheduled to be on Gin and Tonic Show. Hopefully, in the future, we will be able to do an episode on Gin and Tonic Show. But for now, this should be good enough to like whet your appetites because I did promise you guys I was going to do this. So here it is. I hope you guys actually enjoyed it. This is the short version of my presentation on there. And of course, we've gone through everything. We've literally gone through the legendary Muhammad. We've gone through the historical Muhammad that we can actually find within inside of the historical records. We've done all of that. The only thing that I haven't really shown you guys is how there was a generational shift that took place, how the historical, how the traditional narrative of Muhammad split away from the historical Muhammad. That's the only thing I haven't actually shown you. And I usually just do one demonstration because you could find multiple accounts of this. And to me, it's just time consuming. And I don't think nobody really cares for me to go through every single, last narrative or hadith or report or record to like show you where this originally came from, right? So for example, you will find that the original Muhammad, or the proto-Muhammad, his story goes like this. Muhammad and his tribesmen went to Abyssinia in the Yemen to King Abraha. And then you'll find the earliest narrative, which is actually redacted from Tabari and other sources. Okay, so it could have got changed later, but let's just say the early sources will tell you that the messenger of God commanded them to depart to the land of Abyssinia, where the Quraysh conducted business, etc. Okay, and told him to go there. So you can see where the original story came from, but this story tells you that he commanded them to go there. But guess what? Instead of him being there, he was not there. Okay, imagine that. The first followers you've got, you command them to go to the land of Abyssinia. What is your connection with the land of Abyssinia? They don't tell you. They don't go into detail to tell you that, right? But we know that the original story of the historical Muhammad was that him and his tribesmen went to Abyssinia in the Yemen to King Abraha. That's what originally happened. But the stories, they began to change. No, this didn't happen. He sent his followers, but he didn't go there, right? Like, let me show you how messed up it is, right? So, you know about the Hijri. Like, everybody knows, oh yeah, the Hijri. Okay? Most people will know about the Hijri from Mecca to Medina. But nobody knows about the first, I don't say nobody knows, but they don't popularize that the first Hijri is not from Mecca to Medina in the Islamic literature. It's actually from Mecca to Abyssinia. Yeah? Which is crazy. Like, they literally hide this information. And they try to hide the information that Muhammad actually went to Abyssinia as well. Right? So over here in the second generation, you have Zorri writing. It says here, Khadija bin Khuwailid hired him, sending him to Habasha, a market in Tahama. She also hired alongside him another man from the Quraysh. Okay, so this is from Ma'mar. Okay, in his Maghazi. So we can see that Muhammad was trading, in the Habashi territory, right? In the Habashi markets. All right, and that's why he's telling in Aura's narrative, he's telling them to go to Abyssinia, to Habasha, and he's talking about trade and fair markets, etc., etc., etc. Okay, because he's been there, He's been there. But guess what? In Ibn Asak's narrative, guess what? He no longer goes to Abyssinia. He no longer goes to Habasha. Guess where he goes to? Okay, she sent, so Ibn Ishaq once says there, she sent for him and proposed that he should take her goods to Syria and trade with them while she would pay him more than she paid others. He was to take a lad of hers called Masir. The apostle of God accepted the proposal and the two set forth until they came to Syria. Okay, so we can see successive generations, it changes, right? So Zuri's generation, he goes to Habash. He goes to Khadijah sends him to Habasha, right? This time he doesn't go to Habasha in Ibn Ishaq's narrative. He goes to Syria. He doesn't go with this anonymous man who's his equal. He goes with Khadijah's servant called Mesera. Then when you go into the fourth generation, right, which is Al-Waqidi, Khadijah sends him again, and it's no longer again, as I said, Habasha. It's now to Syria yet again, and he now goes with Abu Bakr, and he goes with what's his name, Bilal, and so forth, right? Like the story shifts, it changes, it gets fabricated, right? And guess what? Thankfully, we have people like Sean Anthony, and again, please go and purchase the book, and he will show you that we can see how each generation changes the actual story. So let me quickly go through here. However, the reports transmitted by two scholars, Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri and Ibn Ishaq, can be rather securely dated and relate to one another in instructive ways that allowed modern historians to gain insights into how the narratives about Muhammad's trading journeys evolved over time. Yeah? Lovely. It says here, the second journey took place, according to al-Zuhri, after Khadijah hired Muhammad as her agent. This second journey took him and another hired agent southwards to Habasha and market in Tihama, where he met considerable success while conducting business on her behalf. Okay? It says here now, Khadijah, however, the events differ entirely in scope and significance. Ibn Ishaq's narrative of these two journeys mark a profound generational shift. These two journeys were both imagined and retold as more lavish narratives which play an increasingly greater role in the articulation of early Islamic prophetology. Al-Zuhri's accounts, but is now Khadijah's slave. See, so before, like it was, there was a man, and now it's a Khadijah's slave. The two men do not travel south to Habasha, but to Syria. And Khadijah now promises to pay Muhammad a wage in excess of what they gave any other merchant in her employ. And then the other story from Waqidi says, the tradition was, of course, a manifest forgery shot through with anachronism, a fact already noted by some medieval Muslim hadith critics, i.e. Zahabi al-Damascene makes mention of. Okay, so like in there, it's just showing you that like the stories change and evolve. Every generation adds a little bit of spice, a little bit of cumin, a little bit of turmeric, a little bit of all-purpose, and then lastly, some nice jerk seasoning just to make it, a bit flavorsome. Okay? Now again, it's not me saying this stuff. Okay? I'm just the messenger. Scholars tell you this. Okay? All right. Malak came black up in the building. All right, family tree. I'm going to sign out now. If there's anything else, let me know. Drop your comments down in the comment section. Let me know. But again, Kalam has found the historical Muhammad. And that historical Muhammad did amazing things. He completely transformed the Arabian Peninsula. Okay? And he was a Christian. He was a Christian bishop. They did amazing things. Which now begs the question, the Quran that we have in our hands. I'm not talking about the English translation of the Quran. I'm not talking about the commentaries inside of the English translation of the Quran. I'm talking about the Arabic Quran that we have in our hands today. Is that a byproduct, or is that the product of a Christian? Does it align with Christianity? Yes or no? That's another question for another day. But anyways, peace and love, family. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I thought it was fire. I thought it was illuminating. I thought it was enlightening, and I hope you guys felt the same way. If you do, please share this far and wide. Let everybody know about this. I'm back, baby. Black History Month is just around the corner. So if any of you guys, would like for me to, and this is only in England, we have Black History Month, right? I know in Americas, you have it in February, whereas we have it in October. But if any of you guys would like me to come on and present and do some good work and some information, let me know, because I'm here for that, right? I'm here for that. I'm here to spread some good news, spread the message. And even if you want to invite me to your church to spread this here, let me know. Let me know. You want to go invite me to your mosque and get me stoned? La, 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 la. Yeah, let me know. Like, I'm there for it. But anyways, family, peace and love, and I'll catch you guys on another one. Oh, man.